the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right?
Oh!
The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. It is Thursday, and that means it is the OG hour. Patrick Allen here with you as always with another Arrowhead Addict OG. Joining me this week is my guy, Adam Best. Best, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Like I said yesterday, 2-0, and the Chiefs haven't even played well yet. So you have to be pretty happy with the results, even if there's room to improve the process.
Yeah, you can't complain about it. And especially because they started the season with 2 high-quality opponents. Look, they're going to have a game. They're going to lose some games this year. They're going to continue to have struggles in areas as they figure things out. We see it every year. They could lose this week to the Falcons. It's like the perfect kind of game, Sunday Night Football on the road, a team you don't know that well, get a bunch of injuries piled up. It could happen. But there's no reason to freak out if it does, because we've seen this script before, right?
Yeah, it could be the Ravens 0-2 heading into Dallas against a desperate Dallas team. You could be in that situation. Also, I think it's kind of fortunate that the Falcons ended up somehow winning that game Monday night, because if they were 0-2, they would be more desperate to win this one home. So it was looking like a trap game. Maybe it still is after the emotional highs of the Bengals and Ravens rivalries. But don't overlook the Falcons, I guess, is the message.
No, they got a lot of talent over there and a veteran quarterback. Slothy in the chat mentions that we were half an hour late. That was by design, but we probably just neglected to tell you all in the Discord. Jesus Perez, shout out, says Patrick, Guardians are in the playoffs. Go Chiefs, go Guardians. Indeed. I'm a big Guardians fan. I know a lot of listeners of this podcast are not going to like that. And I'm wearing my Cavs shirt. It's a mess. All the Kansas City people, but I got the right hat on. No Browns hat. Not crazy. Not gonna be sporting that. We got a great show for you guys today. We're gonna have our guy from Bacon Bets, from Sports Illustrated Betting, and of course from Fanside Zone Stacking the Box podcast, Iain McMillan. He's a huge tortured Falcons fan, and he is going to drop by to help us preview the game this weekend. Really looking forward to that. But first, we got to get to the news. Shout out to all of our members. If you're watching for the first time, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review over there. It's a great way to support the show. We're going to read a review later in the show. We read all the 5-star reviews, and it's a chance to ask us a question. You can also, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. It's a great way to support us. Easy. It's free. And if you want to become a member of the Arrowhead Addict community, join our private Discord. We have fantasy football leagues, members-only happy hours, sometimes in-person events. You want to check out the link in the description below this video. And make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and hit that notification button, because we go live, 4 times, 5 times a week sometimes. And then, of course, we've got the pregame, halftime, and postgame shows for all the Chiefs games. So check that out. Thomas Cooney says, I'm freaking out. Even though we're 2-0, I have a lot of worries. Tackles, linebackers, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. None of these groups look great. Thomas, we're going to get to maybe all of that in the show. So stay tuned and take a deep breath, brother. It's going to be okay. Just think about those Super Bowl rings. Go back and watch the Super Bowl from last year again. It's on YouTube. All right, before we get into the news, I want to let you guys know that we've got it's just like a great time of year again, right? I mean, football is back, and it's here to stay until February, of course, for the Chiefs. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. Win up to $1,000, 1,000 times your money by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats. I was doing it last week. It's a lot of fun. They've got a lot of presets in there. You can go in there and look at Mahomes' passing yards. You can say, okay, what's set at higher or lower? It's a lot of fun. And making picks with underdogs is a very straightforward way, and signing up is easier than ever. So just head on over to Underdog's really simple to use mobile app on underdogfantasy.com. Sign up with our promo code. Great way to support the show, Arrowhead Addict. And Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. So that's Underdog Fantasy promo code Arrowhead Addict to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. You've got to be 18 or older, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 and older in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK, or text HOPE New York 467-369. Appreciate y'all sitting through that. Okay. But check out Underdog and support the show. I'm serious. So we got to hit the news before we bring Iain on, and some big news. Something I wasn't sure was ever going to happen. Kareem Hunt, I'm sure you all know by now, is back on the Chiefs. You all know the story of Kareem Hunt. Had a really ugly incident where he almost tackled a woman, knocked her down, kicked her in an altercation in a hotel. Wasn't honest with the Chiefs about it. And because of that, the Chiefs cut him. There was a break of trust there. They let him go. And Kareem always seemed like a nice kid to me. Obviously don't know him personally. He's from my neck of the woods in Cleveland, Ohio. And he was able to catch on with the Browns and seems to have put his life back together. He goes out and talks to groups. He hasn't had any kinds of incidents like that since then. So you like to see that when somebody makes an awful mistake like that. And he's done a nice job in Cleveland for the Browns as kind of a rotational back for them, has started at times. Last season wasn't on the roster to start, and they brought him back after they had the injury to Nick Chubb. And his efficiency is, look, this is not the guy that you remember from his time in Kansas City. At least he wasn't in Cleveland. Looked a step slower, efficiency numbers down. First of all, what's just your initial reaction, Adam, to having Kareem Hunt back on the Chiefs, on the practice squad?
Whew. Well, I think he, for my taste, is a little bit too much like the other backs, because now we have three backs who are relatively slow compared to your average NFL running back, bigger than most backs, and have soft hands and presumably can pass protect. So I really would like that changeup pitch, someone a little bit more explosive like Jerick McKinnon or Damian Williams, with a little bit more track speed to generate explosive plays to the run game here and there. Because I don't think really any of these three guys have a good chance to do that. Now, that being said, I think with having left tackle problems with Kingsley Suamadi-Ia and Hollywood Brown's not there, they're working in a rookie in Xavier Worthy. I think adding a guy who knows the system, who Patrick and Andy are comfortable with, who can, chip block, pass protect, just is going to be super reliable, and not having Patrick having to adjust to yet another new face. That's probably part of this is just convenience and not adding more to the offense's plate. So it's low risk. If you look at why he didn't stick in Cleveland, you're saying, well, Nick Chubb's hurt, right? I know they have Jerome Ford, who's a good player, but they picked Deonta Foreman and Pierre Strong over him. So how much does he have left in the tank? But it's a low risk bet to put him on the practice squad. So I don't really have a problem with that. I would just like to see some more speed in that backfield.
People freak out, especially those of us who like to play fantasy. You can play on Underdog Fantasy using the code Arrowhead Addict. Like when these running backs, so Kareem Hunt's 29 now, and we know that their efficiency starts to drop off. They start to lose a step. It really matters when they get older. It's a tough position to play. They take a beating. But styles also make fights. And we've seen guys look like they were toast and then reemerge somewhere else and actually have a decent season. Not comparing Kareem Hunt to Randy Moss, but Randy Moss, we thought he was toast. It was over. And then he goes and he has an incredible run with New England. Here's a running back that I think we all thought was pretty much toast. What about Alvin Kamara? We're all sitting here watching Alvin Kamara the last couple of years, and we're like, he doesn't look like himself. He doesn't look the same. And then they get an offensive coordinator in New Orleans who actually knows how to use motion. And it's 2 games into the season, but he sure looks like Alvin Kamara to me. Do you think there's any chance of a Kareem Hunt renaissance, that it was partially the system and the usage, the way the Browns used Kareem Hunt in Cleveland, and that maybe he has maybe not quite the magic he had early on with the Chiefs, but maybe a little bit more than we think?
Yeah, he's walking into a totally different environment. In Cleveland, opposing defenses know that they want to establish the run first and foremost. In Kansas City, they do not care about the running backs, opposing defenses. They are begging you to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hand, to simplify Andy Reid's pass book and not throw the entire passing attack at you. They do not want the ball in Travis Kelce's hands, Rashee Rice's hands, Xavier Worthy. He's a little bit more raw and he's a rookie, but that speed, anytime he touches the ball, he's a threat to take it to the house. So I think that puts him in a much better situation because he's going to face lighter boxes. They'd rather give Kareem Hunt 6 yards than Patrick Mahomes 60. That's the arithmetic on the opposing sideline. So I think there's a chance he looks better than he did last year in Cleveland. I also don't think he was totally healthy during his time in Cleveland. So maybe his body's feeling good, rejuvenated, had some time off. I agree with you. I wouldn't expect this to be, 2018 Kareem Hunt, because he's just an older player, a lot of miles on the tires. And I don't think it's fair to ask any of these 4 guys to try to replace Isaiah Pacheco, who is young and an elite athlete and is really coming into his own. But as a committee, can they get the job done? I think so.
Shout out to Thomas Cooney, by the way, for gifting some Arrowhead Addict membership. It's really awesome of you to do. That's the kind of community we have here at Arrowhead Addict. They want you to join. They're going to pay for it. I'll say this. I thought it was curious that they brought him back, simply because, one, they've got guys on the practice squad. And of course, they did elevate Ingram, running back Ingram, Keontae Ingram, from the practice squad, as well as Cole Christensen to help out at linebacker. So, they have guys that know the system and stuff. And you want to keep the pipeline going. So I understand that somebody goes out, Ingram comes up, but like early in training camp, Deneric Prince, who has some really interesting metrics. If you look at some of the advanced metrics around Deneric Prince, I thought this guy was going to be the number 2. He was starting and getting starting reps in training camp. He wasn't going to be in front of Pacheco, but he was getting those kinds of reps. They cut him. He's on, I think he still is. He's on the Dolphins practice squad. And so rather than like elevate Ingram, who like nobody's taken him, swiped him from the Chiefs practice squad. So like, I thought maybe they'll just get Deneric Prince back from the Dolphins. What do you think happened there? Number 1, with Deneric Prince, and 2, isn't it a little curious that they go and they get, like, of all the people like that might be available that are out there, they go and get Kareem Hunt?
I guess it's just familiarity with the system. I mean, maybe Mahomes himself had something to do with that, kind of pining for Kareem Hunt behind closed doors. We don't know.
Friends.
We're not privy to that information, but it is curious to me because, especially when the Miami Dolphins pick up Deneric Prince, that tells me that this team might be the best team in the league at designing its running game.
Yeah.
And they are attracted to elite athletes who can get north and south quick. And I think that's the kind of running back the Chiefs need. So it is a bit of a head scratcher that they didn't just bring that guy back because he is that changeup pitch. I just wonder if they do not feel comfortable with him in pass protection at all. If they just feel like our $500 million quarterback is too exposed with Deneric Prince in the backfield.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they're going. And I also just think that they're no longer the finesse team of yesteryear. This isn't the Legion of Zoom. This is a team. Sure, they have Xavier Worthy and they brought in Hollywood Brown. But first and foremost, I think they want to rack up yak, punch you in the mouth. If Mahomes has to scramble, he'll scramble. So maybe they just want to play a little bit more ground and pound and be a little bit more of a physical, wear you down offense. Maybe they're seeing how the rest of the league is playing and kind of thinking, well, we're not going to generate a bunch of explosive plays anyways. Let's just wear down opposing defenses with these big backs.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Prince, if he ever gets a chance in Miami, I think it's a great fit for him. I think he'll do very well there if he's given the chance. It's going to be interesting. There's a possibility, although I would say it's unlikely, that Kareem Hunt plays on Sunday. The Chiefs can elevate him anytime they want. He just got there. He wasn't in training camps, I don't think, with anybody either. So it's unlikely, but we'll see. That Andy Reid left the door open when he was asked about it. But I think they brought him in because I think they actually plan to use him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's off the practice squad soon, but we'll see. Okay, let's get on to previewing this game. We're going to get to Ian in just a second. But first, I got to let you know that Chiefs Falcons, the line is -3.5 in this one. Over under is 46.5. Falcons are coming into this game 1-1. They lost the season opener to the Steelers 18-10, which was a bit of a surprise. Now, look, the Steelers have an elite defense, but still, Kirk Cousins, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, like you could only score 10 points versus the Steelers. We're going to ask Ian about that. I want to know a lot about that game. And then last week against the Eagles, they looked to be in a similar kind of like stuck in the mud place against the Eagles. And then they ended up coming back at the very end and winning on Monday Night Football 22-21. And I want you to know, Adam, I lost a fantasy football match to your brother, my boss, on that damn play because Saquon Barkley couldn't catch a ball so that the Eagles could run out the clock. And then your brother, who had Kirk Cousins and Drake London, I was up by like 4 points. And those guys get an extra drive, and then he throws the touchdown. I was still up. And then Kirk Cousins throws the touchdown, and he throws it to that guy. Kidding me.
Yeah. Fantasy football is so unpredictable that Kirk Cousins, the most unlikely suspect in prime time, taking you out. You know, that's the guy that sniped you. Man.
I'm telling you, same week last year, I'm playing him, and I'm pretty sure that what happened was he was up on me. And I needed like one more catch on Monday. I think it was Monday Night Football again or Sunday Night Football from Garrett Wilson. And Garrett Wilson caught a ball and his toe was on the chalk.
The old Isaiah Likely trick.
The old Isaiah Likely. Just brutal luck for me. But I will note that your brother did not make the playoffs last year and I was in the championship. So we'll see how it goes this year. All right. Producer Sean, is Ian with us? Is he ready to come on? Come on. Yes, yeah, let's bring on Iain McMillan. Ian is an editor over at Sports Illustrated covering betting. He's the co-host, as I mentioned, of the Stacking the Box podcast and the Bacon Bets podcast. You want to check that out. Make sure you get some good information from him there. And he is a long-tortured Falcons fan. How's it going so far for you this year, Ian?
It's been a roller coaster of a season so far. I expect the entire season is going to be a roller coaster. I wouldn't expect anything else from the teams that I cheer for. But listen, guys, I chalked up this game this weekend as a loss for the Falcons. I thought we were going to be 1-2 after the first 3 games. I thought the win was going to come against the Steelers. So I will say I'm a little bit more comfortable since we were able to steal the win against the Eagles. Because if we were going into this game with a strong possibility of falling to 0-3, I'd be pretty stressed right now. But now that we're 1-1, we're kind of right on track. I can be a little bit more relaxed going up against the Chiefs. But it's going to be an interesting one. This is going to tell us a lot about the Falcons season, I think.
Okay, so I got to ask you. You're from Canada.
Yeah.
How did you become a Falcons fan, and how much do you regret that decision?
Yeah. Second part of that's a great question. Yeah, I'm Canadian. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Nova Scotia. So I mean, a lot of people who are Canadian from the Toronto area Usually Bills fans, because Buffalo's just across the border there. I don't have any team that's across. Nova Scotia's not attached to an American border. I think geographically, I think the closest team would have been the Patriots, but I hated the Patriots growing up. So when I started following football in the early 2000s, what I ended up doing was I created a player in Madden 2006, I want to say, put him into the draft in superstar mode and said, whatever team drafts my fake player will be the team I cheer for the rest of my life. And as fate would have it, my fake player was drafted by the Falcons, and I've stayed faithful to that, unfortunately. It might be the darkest timeline that I've been sent on since that fake player was drafted by the Falcons, but I've stayed faithful 20 years later.
Now, that Madden franchise has ruined a lot of lives. Okay, here's a weird thing that I heard once that I want to ask you as a Canadian before we get into the football. Did you know, and I think this is correct, that more people in the United States live farther north than the whole population of Canada?
Yes.
So you knew that?
Yes. Because there's the majority of Canadians live in like the Toronto area, which is Southern Ontario, which is kind of like south of the most northern part of the border.
Yeah, there's that dip down.
Yeah,
and
exactly. And that's where the majority of the population's from.
So that's a good trivia question. There's probably a better way to word it for actual trivia, but just remember that when you guys are getting all, like we the North and all that stuff.
I have a Canadian sports trivia fact for you guys. Do you guys know what the Grey Cup is?
I do not.
The Grey Cup is the CFL, Canadian football. We have our own football up north. It's a little slightly different rules, 3 downs, an extra player on either side. An American team has won.
Lots of motion, right?
Lots of motion, yes. If you're not like the slot receivers can run up to the line as it's supposed to be snapped. An American team has won the CFL Grey Cup more recently than a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup, which is, of course, the NHL trophy. Because there was like 2 years in the early 90s, there was like 3 American teams joined the CFL. The Baltimore team won the Grey Cup, and I think it was 94. And the last time a Canadian team won their championship in our own sport of hockey was in 92 with the Montreal Canadiens.
Ooh,
so
that's
a tough pill to swallow that we hear as Canadians every year in the Stanley Cup playoffs come around.
Can you imagine if Tyreek Hill could get a running start up to the line of scrimmage before the snap? I don't know what you would do. It would be a nightmare.
It's even though it is overall the same game, the strategy of Canadian football is completely different. It's what I played growing up. I played college football up in Canada with Canadian rules. That position, I guess, which would be a nickelback in American football, is called a halfback in Canadian football. You start off way further back off the line of scrimmage. You just give guys all the room in the world, which then opens up some other things. But yeah, not to kind of dive too deep into Canadian football, but even though it's, generally the same thing, you're going for the end zone, you can kick field goals. The whole strategy is just completely different because the fields are much bigger as well, both wider and longer.
Oh, you might have to get a CFL podcast going here. All right, so let's get into this game. So let's start with the most important question. The Falcons are famous for their Rise Up intro video starring Samuel L. Jackson. Is Samuel L. Jackson going to be in attendance Sunday night? Has he called you to let you know?
I've not heard from Samuel L. Jackson. No.
It's a shame.
You got to counterbalance the Taylor Swift, right?
Is T Swift going? Is she going to go to Atlanta?
Who knows?
She might. I got to be honest with you. If I had this might make some of the Swifties in the audience mad, but if I had the chance to like hang out with or meet Taylor Swift or Samuel L. Jackson, it would be Samuel L. Jackson.
No, for sure. Yeah.
And that's not a knock on her, but like it's Samuel L. Jackson.
I mean, we're the Pulp Fiction generation. We didn't grow up Swifties. We grew up with Big Kahuna Burger, right?
Correct.
So many just classic lines from that guy. All right. So let's start with Kirk. How satisfied are you with the Kirk Cousins era so far?
Great question. I am now cautiously optimistic. The first 6 quarters of the Kirk Cousins era in Atlanta did not go well at all. Week 1 could not have gone worse. There was all the footage. I mean, my Twitter timeline was all the replays of Kirk Cousins dropping back in week 1 compared to Kirk Cousins dropping back last season in week 2. I don't think he took a single snap under center in week 1, didn't do any play action, which is kind of Kirk Cousins' whole thing. That's where he's at his best, is under center play action. So I was very scared heading into week 2, and then week 2, the first half, Didn't look great either, even though in the first half he did play some under center, did play a little bit more, some play action plays. But then, of course, I mean, that game-winning drive brought my faith completely back in. I'm now back all in. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be similar to Aaron Rodgers, where both those guys are, I mean, same injury. They're just going to need some time, which is why I don't expect to win this game against the Chiefs this weekend, to be honest. I think the Falcons are going to be at their best later in the season once Kirk Cousins gets a little bit more confident in his Achilles. Once, don't forget Zach Robinson for us, brand new offensive coordinator. This is his first time being the offensive coordinator. He was the pass game coordinator in Los Angeles before this. So we got some guys who need a little bit of time to really find their groove, and for Kirk Cousins to kind of get some of his confidence back. And I think that game-winning drive last week was a huge step forward in the right direction for that. Now, are we going to see that version of Kirk Cousins for 4 quarters against the Chiefs? Probably not. But I am now back to being confident. I just think he's going to get better week by week, and then by midseason, I think we're going to be all set. But
so Monday night, your experience was first half, it's so over. Second half, we're so back.
Correct.
That's the ride.
And I will say it's a good sign. That was, I'm sure you guys seen the graphic, Falcons like a 0.7% chance to win the game, and then they won. It's a good sign that for the first time in my memory, we are on the right side of that graphic. How many times have I seen the graphic where Falcons had a 99.3% chance to win and then they lose? Too many times to count. So maybe it's a new era in Atlanta. Maybe we win those games instead of lose those games. That would be nice.
And Kirk winning in prime time too. That's not his usual speed, right? So that's a good omen as well.
He doesn't like the spotlight. I can't take credit for this, but I think it's hilarious. I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers podcast, and they said basically the Eagles defense put their helmets on backwards for that final drive, which really was true. Like, if you watch that, I have no idea what they were doing. Like, Nick Sirianni, like, what's going on over there, man?
Vic Fangio, right?
It was like
Eagles defense has been abysmal the first 2 weeks. They weren't good against the Packers. Now, they were able to get the job done enough in week 1 against the Packers, but their defense has been bad.
The Falcons didn't have any timeouts. Like, that's the thing. Like, they were out of timeouts, and they scored a touchdown with like 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Like, the Eagles got the ball back with a chance to. The Eagles were so bad that it almost worked out for them. They got the ball back for long enough for Jalen Hurts to throw a bad interception. I mean, I don't know what happened. It was just, I honestly think somebody just, paid off as producer Sean, who is a noted Eagles fan, is chattering at us in the chat. I honestly think that Nick Sirianni and the Eagles were paid handsomely by Adam's brother, Zach Best, who I was playing in fantasy football. I don't know if you heard that at the beginning of the show there, Ian, but you guys cost me dearly.
Yeah, like I said, it's just nice to be on the right side of that, because I've been on the wrong side of those losses too many times to count. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to feel after being on the right side of that.
So you've kind of already answered this, but like, they were stuck in the mud offensively until that drive. Do you think that continues at least maybe a little bit against Kansas City, or do they kind of revert back to what they were before?
Yeah, and I mean, we showed flashes in that game. I mean, we got down inside the red zone twice. I think both times they resulted in field goals. The Falcons can do some things really well offensively, which I think if we have any chance this weekend against the Chiefs, I think we got to run the football. That is our biggest strength right now. Bijan Robinson has looked fantastic last week. He looked good in week 1 as well, but I don't think the play calling helped him out. I think the play calling was a lot better in week 2. We have a path. If we can not rely too much on Kirk Cousins this game, if we can run the ball, get first downs, keep Mahomes off the field, we're going to have a chance. But like I said earlier, this isn't only just about Kirk Cousins getting his confidence back and figuring out how to play with these guys and figuring out how to play in the scheme. It's also Zach Robinson, who, like I said earlier, this is his first time being offensive coordinator for a team. It's going to take him some time to figure out his play calling, to figure out, when to call what plays. I mean, in week 1, for example, and this, it is a perfect example of a mistake that a first-time offensive coordinator is going to make. half their plays were in shotgun, and they ran the ball out of shotgun 0 times. So by the end of the game, the Steelers knew if they were in shotgun formation, it was going to be a pass because they ran 0 run plays out of that formation, even though I think it was like 42 plays out of shotgun or like 30 plays out of shotgun, when 100% of them were throws. Those are the mistakes Zach Robinson's going to clean up as the season goes on. So yes, Kirk Cousins is the obvious candidate for a guy who needs to take a step forward every single week. And even in the win against the Eagles last week, the first thing he said after the game was, listen, guys, I got to be sharper. So he knows that Cousins needs to play better. But I think, the under talked about storyline about the Falcons offense, I think, is their offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, getting used to play calling a game as well. So, well, he'll get better. Is he going to get good enough to now beat the back-to-back defending champs? It's a tall order. It's a big ask.
Let's switch to the other side of the ball. The Falcons' new look defense, Matthew Judon, Justin Simmons, has been playing surprisingly well. What do they do best?
Cover the center of the field deep. That's what they do best. I for my money, I think the Falcons safeties, Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, are the two best safety duo in the entire NFL. We saw, especially in week 1, the Steelers didn't even throw to the middle of the field. Everything was short and to the sideline. So I think getting deep balls, especially down the middle of the field, is going to be tough against this Falcons team. Now, my biggest issue with the Falcons defense, which terrifies me for Sunday night, is they can't rush the passer. So Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, is going to have all day to throw back there, which is going to be a disaster. The best thing we do is cover the middle of the field deep. The worst thing we do, other than rush the passer, is we do have, not a lot of great depth in the secondary. Safety is very good. We have one corner who's pretty good, although a little inconsistent in AJ Terrell. But then we have our second cornerback. That's a position I wish we could have addressed this offseason. We have Mike Hughes in there now, who has done a decent job, but there is some holes, especially if Mahomes has time to find those holes and pick them apart, which I expect that he's going to be able to do. That's going to be a weakness of our secondary. Not necessarily deep throws, but there's going to be a lot of short sideline throws that are going to be available for him.
Old friend alert with Mike Hughes. The last time we saw him in Kansas City, he was falling down covering Gabe Davis in one of the most memorable shootouts in playoff history. So we know Mike Hughes quite well.
So Travis Kelce for the Chiefs has not really been able to get going yet this season. It's early. Chances are, I'm guessing in this one, the Chiefs have a game plan to do that, to force feed him the ball, to get him rocking and rolling. He's obviously so important to what they do. They want to get a season kind of started here. And of course, they've had injuries. They don't have Hollywood Brown. Now they don't have Isaiah Pacheco. So they really need him to get going. How good is Atlanta at dealing with pass catching tight ends?
That's a good question. I think the linebacker core has been solid, but they still are a little bit unproven. We lost Nate Landman, one of our better linebackers, there a couple weeks ago or last week. He's on IR. So, and this is the case for our entire defense, is that we're just we don't have any depth. If we get injuries at any position, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And that's kind of where we've had injuries so far already, is a linebacking core. So, Travis Kelce, this could be a big breakout game for him. But speaking of tight ends, I want to ask you guys this. And I saw someone say it in the chat earlier. Kyle Pitts having a big game. You guys have struggled covering tight ends. You want to talk about covering tight ends? Is that just a 2-week bad sample size? Is that just like variance? They're going to figure this out, or is there something going on with the Chiefs defense covering tight ends? Isaiah Likely, Mike Gesicki. Is Kyle Pitts going to have a big game?
Yeah, I don't think it's just bad variance or a 2-week sample, because Isaiah Likely is a good player. They did shut down Mark Andrews, but they're giving up 138 yards per game to a tight end. That's kind of crazy. And sure, Steve Spagnuolo wants to take away explosive plays and wants to, bend a little bit in the short and intermediate area of the field. But man, that's Mike Gesicki is a useful player, but 100 yards, and Eric All and Drew Sampler catching passes at will too. The Chiefs have a little bit of a problem there. I think their linebackers and their safeties haven't been playing their best coverage football. So yeah, if Kyle Pitts is going to have a breakout game early this season, this lines up pretty well for him.
Adam and I talked about this already. I don't think the Chiefs care about tight ends. I don't, depending on who they're playing. Steve Spagnuolo likes to take away your best player. And that's that. So he likes to make people uncomfortable, not being able to do what they like to do against the Ravens. He knows Lamar loves to throw to Mark Andrews, and they got a lot of deep shots last year because of teams trying to stop their running game. He wanted to take that away. I think they did a pretty good job about that. Didn't care about that. Means you got to give up something else, and that's Isaiah Likely. I think the Bengals came out with a really good game plan, and they knew that the Chiefs were not going to let Jamar Chase get going. He had 4 catches in that game. Trenton Irwin didn't do anything for them, so they shut down the wide receivers. Yeah, the Bengals moved the ball against with some kind of scrubby. No offense to them, but like as far as pass catching goes, scrubby tight ends. These are not guys that you're worried about. But I also agree with Adam. The linebackers have been struggling a little bit. And this one, it's really interesting to me because Kyle Pitts athletically is incredible. The production hasn't been there in recent years, but that's mostly due to Arthur Smith, I think. Drake London is starting to come into his own. I'd worry about him. And then, of course, Bijan Robinson. If I had to guess, I would think that Spags is going to feel really good about putting Trent McDuffie on Drake London. And then I think his next concern is going to be Bijan Robinson. And so I think that's what the linebackers are going to be worried about. And so probably for a third week in a row, I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Pitts has a big game across the middle for the Falcons.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Falcons fans are very torn on Kyle Pitts. Very good rookie season, obviously, when Matt Ryan was still there. Back-to-back, not good seasons. He is confirmed not a good blocker. I think at this point they should move Kyle Pitts just out to slot because there's no sense trying to get him to block. This year has been decent, 3 catches in each of the first 2 games, but still, I think the Falcons fan base is patiently, or I guess now impatiently waiting for a Kyle Pitts breakout game. And I think based on, what you guys said in the first 2 weeks for the Chiefs, could happen this week.
He's still very young. So I think there's, especially for a tight end. So still a lot of untapped upside there. Well, we've talked about the stars. Who are some underrated or little known Falcons players Chiefs fans should look out for in this one?
That's a good question. I don't really know if we have any. And the reason being is what I said before, is that depth is a massive issue on this Falcons team. If we get into any kind of injuries, it's going to be a problem. I think I would actually even look to the offensive line because we're going to have to give Kirk Cousins time, which we did not give him at all in week 1 when we lost to the Steelers, which was a huge issue. TJ Watt was in the backfield on Kirk Cousins immediately the whole time. And we have some guys on the offensive line who are very good. Chris Lindstrom, in my opinion, might be the best guard in the NFL. If not number 1, he's a top 3 guard. But we also, got some young guys who still kind of need to find their own a little bit. So if there's one unit that I think might be under talked about when it comes to the Falcons, it's the offensive line. You have Jake Matthews on the left tackle, very good pass blocker for the most part, terrible run blocker. I shouldn't say terrible, not great run blocker. Caleb McGarry, the right tackle, is the complete opposite. He's a fantastic run blocker. He can't pass block, which is what cost us in week 1 against the Steelers. So an under talked about unit would be the offensive line. That, like I said, for us to have any chance, not only do we need to give Kirk Cousins time when he steps back, we need to open up lanes against Bijan Robinson, where if the Chiefs' defensive game plan is to stop their best player, in my opinion, it's Bijan Robinson. If you stop Bijan Robinson, if you stop the run game in the Falcons, especially at this point of the season when we're still trying to figure out the pass game, Kirk Cousins still trying to get a little bit more confident with that Achilles of his. If you stop the run game, if you stop Bijan Robinson, we're in a lot of trouble. And a lot of that comes down to the offensive line.
All right, you're the betting guy. You mentioned the line. I mentioned the line at the top of the show is Chiefs minus 3.5.
Yeah.
Who do you like in this one if someone is betting the line?
I took the Chiefs. Now, with that being said, I am a betting guy. I'm not a professional bettor, though. Professional bettors are guys who they monitor lines all day long. They bet the amount of money I can't even imagine betting on games in order to make a living off it. Professional bettors are on the Falcons because we have actually seen that line come down. It was 5.5, moved down to 4.5, down to 3.5. Now I'm even seeing at a couple places it's down to 3. And when you look at line movement, there's 2 things that cause it. One, and one actually just relates to the other. One is, injury news. If there's a big name that was ruled out, the line's going to move. Or, in the Panthers case, if they decide to bench their number 1 overall pick, the line moved in their favor. But all of that is in reaction to professional bettors placing bets. So when I see a game like the Chiefs and the Falcons, where there hasn't been major news heading into this week, but the line keeps moving towards the Falcons, that's telling me professional bettors are hammering Atlanta. I don't know why, but sometimes kind of with Falcons games, I actually struggle betting on them because it's kind of hard to separate my heart and my feelings about my favorite team compared to just objective facts. So I'm betting on the Chiefs because all I can envision is Patrick Mahomes having 25 seconds to throw against our secondary that has no real depth to it, and losing this one in an absolute bloodbath. But the people who make a living on these games, betting on these games, the people who are betting, 5 figures at a time, they're betting Atlanta. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe Atlanta has a better chance than I think. I'm all over the Chiefs. So I think this. Now, if this game took place in week 13, week 14, week 15, I think I'd have a lot more faith in the Falcons if they're still healthy at that point. Early season Falcons, we saw it in week 1. We saw it at times in week 2. We have some things we got to work out before we're a complete football team. And I just think this is a big ask for Atlanta, for a new coordinator, a quarterback coming off an injury, young players, a top-heavy defense. It's just a lot to ask going against the Chiefs. So that's a long answer to say I'm betting on the Chiefs, but professional bettors are taking the Falcons. So take that for what it's worth.
I bet the Chiefs money line every week because I'm a Chiefs fan, but also like they win more often than they lose. It usually works out pretty well for me,
Yeah, and they do. And Chiefs obviously have won a lot of games the past couple of seasons, but in terms of covering the spread, the Chiefs have actually been one of the worst spread bets in the last few years because they seem, and last week against the Bengals was a perfect example. They won the game but didn't cover the spread. So they did manage to cover against the Ravens, but barely by a toenail. So yeah, that kind of has been the Chiefs' MO. So if you want to bet on the Chiefs, maybe that is the move. Maybe to just take money line because they find ways to win games, but when it comes to covering spreads, actually not as good as you'd think.
Yeah, I think that's because at this point in their dynasty, they don't care about style points. Yeah. They don't care about blowing teams up or stats or numbers or anything. They're just trying to survive until the postseason. Another betting question for you. The over-under is 46.5. The Chiefs in their first 2 games have gone over both times. The Falcons have gone under. Which way do you see this going?
I would say I think I would go the under in that one. I have been kind of crapping on the Falcons defense because the lack of pass rush against Mahomes does scare me. But overall, their defense was borderline top 10 unit last year. Their defense has been pretty solid through the first 2 weeks. I mean, their defense didn't lose them the game against the Steelers. Didn't let the Steelers in the end zone. Steelers didn't score a touchdown in that game. Pretty decent when they needed to be against the Eagles last week. So the Falcons defense, even though a little bit top heavy, don't have a great pass rush. They can slow some teams down, have been pretty good inside the red zone. And generally, for totals to go over when you get to the red zone, you got to score touchdowns, not field goals. Kicking a ton of field goals is a good way for an under to hit. And then the Falcons offense, I'm still just not totally convinced they're going to be firing all cylinders. And I think their game plan will be to run the ball. You run the football, keep the clock moving, less time for plays. Less time for plays means less time for points. I don't love the over or the under in this game, but if I were to go either way, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. So I'd go under.
All right. Well, then the time has come. Final score prediction.
Final score prediction. You know what? I hate picking against my Falcons, but this is for everything I've said, this is not, I don't think, a great spot for them. So I would say, I'm going to say Chiefs 24, Falcons 17, which I think if my math is right, that would be under the total. Yeah. 24-17 in favor of the Chiefs.
I'll take it. Iain, thank you so much for joining us. It was really great to get your perspective on an upcoming opponent, both from the betting angle and from the football angle. I mentioned some of the places up top, but where can folks find your work?
Yeah, you can find all my written work over at sportsillustrated.com/betting. And if you're interested in betting, check out my betting podcast. It is the Bacon Bets podcast. I bet on all 272 NFL games. It's called the Road to 272. So you can check that out if you want my picks for the rest of this week. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. And good luck this weekend. I just don't blow us out. Just give me a little hope. Don't win like 40-0, please. Give me a little hope Sunday night, and I'll be happy with it.
We rarely blow anybody out. Don't worry, we'll see you in the Super Bowl.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. I'm in. Sign me up.
All right, Iain McMillan from Sports Illustrated, Bacon Bets, and of course, Stacking the Box. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, that was awesome. Great insight from Iain. We don't get a lot of Canadians on the show as well, and so it's good to go international.
That was my exact score pick yesterday, 24-17. So I think he's maybe right on the button right there.
I'll take it. I've gone back and forth. I have got a different score prediction today than I did yesterday when I did my Arrowhead Addict predictions for the website. But I'll kind of explain my thinking on that. But it's just more like a gut thing. All right, let's get to the Chiefs side of this. By the way, shout out, you're watching the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Patrick Allen and the blog father, Adam Best, here with the OG Hour, getting you ready for Chiefs Falcons. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a solid, hit that like button and make sure that you are subscribed and you got notifications turned on for when we do things like the emergency podcast that I did last week. Okay, let's talk about Travis Kelce. We mentioned him when we were talking to Iain. Where are you at on the panic meter with Travis Kelce? How worried are you? Is this it? Is Travis Kelce old? Is he toast? Or is this just a 2-game sample size that doesn't mean anything?
It's a blip. Rumors of his demise have been greatly exaggerated. I'm saying that he is the tight end Tom Brady. He is a historical outlier of which we've never seen before. We've never seen a tight end play so well, so deep into his career. And I think a lot of that is above the shoulders. He is the smartest tight end, one of the smartest, most intuitive football players we've ever seen in the history of the game. He just knows, he has an innate knack for getting open. And I mentioned Jason Witten as well yesterday. That was a dude who could barely run at the end, but he was so smart and understood defenses so well. He was still finding a way to get open and catch passes. And Travis is nowhere near as decrepit as him. I'm sure his body, when he wakes up in the morning, doesn't feel like it did 10 years ago. He's had a lot of surgeries, a lot of injuries. But yeah, I don't think the extracurricular stuff has anything to do with it. In fact, I think he's one of these guys, and you've seen this throughout the history of the league, whether it's Lawrence Taylor or Deion Sanders, some of these bigger characters, they need the extracurricular stuff. They want the bright lights, the spotlight on them. That's what brings out their best. And I think he's that kind of player. Also last week, 41-yard catch, the one where he was screwing around with the fake lateral, nullified by penalty. He almost scored a touchdown as well. He's 1 yard out from scoring. So if he has a touchdown and he has that 41-yard catch, I think the fantasy managers and the fantasy analysts are looking at Travis Kelce. That's what's driving this panic, I think, is that he's underperformed from a fantasy perspective. I don't think Chiefs fans are alarmed that Travis Kelce is going to slow down because, we've been here before. We're that James Franco, first time meeting where he's got the noose around his neck, because we've been here before. We've wondered if Travis Kelce is slowing down. Especially 2 years ago, there was a period where he looked real sluggish. And it turned out he was just beat up. And when you play this many games and you go to the conference championship or the Super Bowl every single year, you just got to get through it, man. I'm sure there are some games where he's just, I don't know. I just believe that he's going to show up when we need him. And I'm not going to predict he's going to slow down until I actually see it with my own eyes for an extended period of time. But how about you, Patrick?
Yeah, look, producer Sean said in the chat, like keeping the Ferrari in the garage until the playoffs. It's kind of, if you're a Chiefs fan, you should be like, hey, this is great. He's taken no punishment in the first 2 weeks of the season, and the Chiefs are 2-0. So that's a great thing for a guy as old as Kelce. And as you mentioned Witt. Elite tight ends in the Witten, Kelce category. Tony Gonzalez. None of those guys, they don't fall off a cliff. They're not getting
Gates,
900. Right? Yeah, they those are the guys that fade away really slowly. Gates could probably still go out there. I mean, I talked to Tony Gonzalez a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him what he thought he could do if he had to step into an NFL game right now, if he had time to prepare. And he said, I think I could get 34 yards and a tutty. He's 48 or 49 years old. Now he's in incredible shape and he's a super confident guy, but I don't doubt it. Like, if you sent Tony Gonzalez to Kansas City right now, say Travis Kelce was, on tour with Taylor. I'm not going to say he got injured or anything. And he goes to Kansas City and practices with the team for 2 or 3 weeks and went out there. I honestly do think he could get 34 yards receiving at his age and probably a red zone touchdown too. So there's no way that Travis Kelce's finished. I think he could go on to actually have a really big season here. I think a lot of what we're seeing is in those first 2 games, one, they're trying to take him away. Of course they are. But 2, I think Patrick, particularly in that Bengals game, he had a horrible, horrible game. One of the worst games he's ever had as a Chief. And you can tell he had fallen back on a little bit of that impatience that he was dealing with when he was learning how to just take what defenses were giving them. And he got a little frustrated. And he was trying to push the ball down the field. And I think what's happening, this is just me, I'm trying to psychoanalyze him from my office here. I think a little bit of what is happening is he got a couple big plays, right, with Xavier Worthy against Baltimore. He went all through training camp having Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, and he was practicing doing a certain thing, which was getting the deep passing game back a little bit. He talked about it. They talked about it in the preseason. Like last year wasn't fun, all that stuff. And he likes to have fun. He has fun out there. I think what you saw against the Bengals was a guy who is a little bit annoyed about this Hollywood Brown injury, who's excited about Xavier Worthy, who still wants to get practice the deep passing game all summer long, and just made a couple dumb mistakes because he wanted to try to get the offense cooking a little bit. And now after that game, he's going to sit down and watch the film. He's going to talk to Matt Nagy. He's going to talk to Andy Reid, and you're going to be like, listen, Xavier Worthy's a rookie. It'll come, but like, it's probably not going to happen right away. Take what they give you. And this is a game going up against the Falcons. They play the kind of defense that the shell coverage that gives Patrick Mahomes fits when he's not patient. So even though Ian was saying they don't have a particularly great pass rush and all that stuff, the Patrick needs to just take what they give him. Throw it to Rashee Rice, dump it off to Samaje Perine, run the football, run yourself if they're not spying you, and just go down there and score a couple touchdowns. They could have beaten the Bengals by a lot more. I know it wasn't a great game, but without those turnovers, like there was a minute there where early in the game where I texted you and some other people in our text thread, and I was like, I think we're going to kill them because the Bengals defense looks soft. And I don't think, other than Hendrickson taking advantage of a rookie left tackle, I don't think the Bengals did that much on defense to slow the Chiefs down. I think it was Patrick Mahomes making bad decisions and turnovers that slowed the Chiefs down.
I think a little bit of it was scheme. Lou Anarumo, the defense coordinator for Cincinnati, really knows how to push Patrick's buttons and provoke that impatient style that gets him in trouble. If there's anything that gets him in trouble, it's just him going big game hunting when he knows better. He got his one shot. He got almost a 50-yard touchdown to Rashee Rice. That should be enough. I mean, that would have been a miracle last year, right? The previous week's plays with Xavier Worthy. I mean, explosive plays are happening all over the place compared to 2023 and 2022. So I think some of it's just the matchup. There's something about the Bengals and the things they do, and maybe the pressure of that environment that just kind of gets under his skin. But I'm glad he saw them again. Maybe he can settle down if they face in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, and look, man, it's such a small sample size. Everything is amplified right now. You know, you watch the game against the Ravens, and you're like, oh, okay, we're terrible at cover. You know, these 2 games, we're terrible at covering tight ends. Xavier Worthy's going to be a star like right away, and you know all of these things, and then you get into this game against the Bengals, and don't panic. Again, just like I said with Travis Kelce, with his performance so far, if those 2 games happen in the middle of October after like a great start for Kelce and a great start for the Chiefs offense, you wouldn't be concerned about it. So just take a deep breath. They're 2-0 against 2 quality playoff caliber AFC opponents. Now they're going to play an NFC game that if they drop it, not ideal, doesn't hurt them for AFC seeding potentially. So it's, I think they're going to be fine here, but there are some issues to worry about. And of course, one of the other ones is the running game without Pop out there. How confident are you in Carson Steele? And I know you're a big Samaje Perine guy. You've been waving his flag since they signed him.
Yeah, I am. And I've got some stats here for you. Last season, among running backs with 150 routes, who ran 150 routes, he was first in yards per route run, beating out even Breece Hall. And then he tied for the league lead in yards after contact per reception. So I think this was going to be a development, even if Pacheco was healthy. He is that good of a receiver out of the backfield. I don't know if Jet McKinnon was a stealth bomber, this guy's a tank, right? But he's equally efficient as a receiving back. I think they were looking for someone who brought that same efficiency, and you're not going to really find someone as athletic as Jet McKinnon off the scrap pile. I think that was just a rare thing where he was injured for so many years, and then he got his body right somehow that it was almost a miracle that he landed in the Chiefs' lap. But Samaje Perine is every bit as efficient. So I have a lot of confidence in him. He's no slouch as a rusher. He's just kind of been entrenched in these committees in Cincinnati and Denver. We know that Sean Payton likes to use a lot of different backs. And I think Sean Payton is looking toward the future with Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams. So it wasn't necessarily like Samaje Perine, you're no good, get out of here. It's let's take a look at the younger players. We're in the middle of a youth movement. As far as Carson Steele is concerned, I think he looks pretty good as a runner. He's got to hold on to the football. But obviously, when Andy Reid is using a rookie in his second game to salt away the game late after a fumble, that shows a great deal of trust in him. And I think with what the Chiefs are going to do, especially minus Hollywood Brown, you're going to see a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. We saw Noah Gray on the field. We saw Jared Wiley on the field. I think they're going to come out and try to punch the Falcons in the mouth with a physical running game. And these guys are both 230 pounds. So they've got the frame to kind of wear the Falcons down. And the Chiefs, I think, are probably once again going to pull out the victory, in the waning moments.
I've been getting a lot of heat about Carson Steele, who I've been a huge fan of since the preseason, because on the show last week, in the postgame show, I said, he's not a Carson Steele is not, I was like, he's not like a 15. I don't think he's a 15 carry a game guy. And of course, producer Sean, he throws me to the wolves because he cuts that into a short and he rolls with the headline, Carson Steele is not ready. So, the short goes out and these guys, they're attacking me like piranhas. And what I was saying is, look, I hope I'm wrong, right? But speed is really important when it comes to a running back. We talk about running backs all the time losing a step, and how when they just lose a little bit of that step, it's the NFL. It is so just razor's edge. You get through that hole, you get through that crease, you don't. And a little bit of drop in speed can hurt you. This guy ran Carson Steele ran like a 4.77 40. Now he might be a little bit faster than that. He might have had a bad 40, but that is molasses slow for an NFL starting running back. I mean, there's a reason they listed him as a fullback. I think I like him, but I think the Chiefs, they brought this guy on and kept him on the roster because they liked the physicality that he brought to them. They've had issues in short yardage and issues in goal line. And the guy runs so damn hard. He's just something unlike anybody that they've had since Mahomes and Reed have really been in town. And so I think they really like that. They tried to use Clyde like that, thick Clyde, a little bit like that last year. And it worked a little bit, but I don't think that this is a guy that if you give him, we've seen guys like this before. Who was the guy at San Diego had the little butterball guy? Tolbert? Was that his name?
Yeah, and I'm thinking of Peyton Hillis too. Maybe that's because they're both white, but
white running backs.
Peyton Hillis comes to mind.
He's another jacked guy. Strong.
Mike Allstott, maybe.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we're going to compare him to Mike Allstott. A little bit of a rarity, but
yeah.
Those kinds of running backs generally, Allstott aside, if you give them 15 carries in a game, they're going to plod around for 2.3 yards a carry because they're just not fast enough to do any damage. Yeah, of course, if they hit a hole like we saw Carson Steele do in the preseason, and they're up there running full steam ahead, going up against safeties and cornerbacks, they're going to look fantastic. But they've got to get there, and that's the problem with running backs like that is oftentimes they're just not able to get there. And I think there's a reason why they brought in Kareem Hunt. I think you will see more small JP run because I do think Carson Steele could be limited. Now, look, maybe I'm a clown, and I would sign up for the clown outfit if Carson Steele is like something special. And when I say something special, I mean more than a specialist, more than a short yardage specialist. Maybe he's just got it. He sure seems like he does, right? From the small sample size that we've seen. But history would say, look, he's fine, but he's probably not going to be, I'm telling you, one of these guys that was blowing me up about this comment was like, he's better than Pacheco. And I was like, you guys are out of your mind, right? You saw a couple good runs in preseason. I know he's Chiefs Thor. It's exciting, but like, I'll tell you what, if Carson Steele finishes the season, I got to be careful here. If he finishes the season with more than 700 rushing yards,
I was going to say 800.
I'll do seven. I'm not getting a tattoo, Sean. I already got myself into trouble with the tattoo bet, which I did get a temporary tattoo, by the way, which was on my arm for a month. People still give me shit about that, but I never said what kind of tattoo I was going to get. If he gets more than, I'm going to go 700 because Pop's going to come back. If he gets more than 700 yards rushing this season, I will do an entire episode of the Arrowhead Addict podcast in a full clown suit. I will go buy a clown costume, and I'll do the whole thing. I'll put on the wig, I'll put on the red nose, and I'll do a full episode, and I'll happily do it.
It has to be Ronald McDonald because he's got the Chiefs colors going on. So
that's true. I'll do a Chiefs inspired clown costume. Slothy's freaking out in the chat because he didn't know it was temporary. Yeah, it was look. I wanted to give you guys a little something for that because it was amazing what you did for Special Olympics. But it was a temporary tattoo. It was on me for a month. Took a month to come off. By the way, I see Lauren Shank saying, am I still throwing shade at the Saints? Because I was talking about how much I hate their head coach and how I thought he'd get fired in the middle of the season. I still think he's a horrible head coach, but I think they did one good thing, which was they brought in an offensive coordinator that actually uses motion, and we'll see how it goes in the long term for him. But
play action too.
Yeah,
they just were like the most static offense imaginable last season. So
yeah. All right, let's get.
I'm rooting for Carson Steele now.
I was always rooting for Carson Steele. I was just trying to be realistic about a 4.77 40 time running back for the Chiefs, by the way, who would like to throw the football. So look, the tight end thing. How worried are you? Look, Adam, Atlanta runs 12 personnel or has run 12 personnel this year 40% of the time. That's third in the league. Is Kyle Pitts going to eat versus this Chiefs defense?
Probably. I mean, define eating, but based on what we've seen the last 2 weeks, I think though it's both where Spagnuolo wants to funnel the passing attack of the opposing offense, and it's where the Chiefs have their weakest coverage players. So I don't think they're gonna test the boundary or get a lot of explosive plays. I know Jermaine Burton had one long catch last week, and Isaiah Likely broke one off the week before. But it's very rare that you're gonna, get some bomb against the Chiefs or rip off a bunch of explosive plays. So I just think it's like you said, they're gonna take what the Chiefs are giving them. That's what they're giving them. That's kind of the weakest link, and I still think it's bend, don't break. There's just been a little bit too much bending for my liking.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Okay, what about the left tackle position? Talking of concerns, the Chiefs have not really said, at least as far as I could tell today, doing my research for the show, whether or not Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamataia is going to be starting at left tackle. Who is going to be starting at left tackle in your opinion? Who do you think should be?
I think Kingsley Suamataia. And I saw today that former Chief great Tim Grunhard said that the Chiefs need to sit Kingsley down. And you got to take his opinion and weigh it somewhat significantly because he knows offensive line play. He knows this team and the city and all of that. But 21-year-old rookie picked 63rd overall. Everyone knew he's raw, great athletic specimen, but the technique so far isn't all the way there. You're going to expect him to come in immediately in his pro career and handle Trey Hendrickson. I think Trey Hendrickson is at worst a top 8 edge in the National Football League, and maybe a top 10 to 12 overall pass rusher, both interior and exterior in the league. So I think to get to his immense ceiling, if we want to build Kingsley up, it's going to take some patience. You're going to have to live with some growing pains. I think if you're yanking him in and out and you're not willing to see him grow, you're not going to get to the destination. So I'm fine if they need to pull him aside like they did last game or like they did with Jawan Taylor last year. Quick reset, talk to him about technique, calm him down. I'm fine with that. But I think if you're pulling him and Wanye in and out and switch, you got to pick a horse in this horse race because that's the way one of these guys are going to develop. And I think he's the one with the higher upside. So go with Kingsley Suamataia and give him a little bit more chip help. I know Andy Reid likes to get 5 guys out in routes. That may just not be possible all the time early in the season if they're facing good pass rushers. And Matthew Judon he's not, I don't think, quite Trey Hendrickson's level, but he's a good pass rusher. Where are you at with this positional battle?
Look, I'm not an offensive line guy, but I just think your Kansas City Chiefs, you've invested now a second and a third round pick the last 2 years in the draft in Wanye Morris and Kingsley Suamataia. As long as he's mentally together and isn't going to freak out if you need to pull him again, put him out there, man. He's not going to get any better standing on the sidelines. He's just not. The practice will help. Being there will help, but he's not going to get better. The only way he's going to get better is trial by fire. And if you believe in his athletic skill set, you need him later this season to be a better version than he is right now. And the only way that that's really going to happen is to put him out there. If he starts to struggle, bring in Wanye Morris. But you've invested so much draft capital in these guys. Can you really afford to have them both understudy, another season and not use them? Again, they got to get the reps. So I say put them out there. Tell it, and what's the big, if you got to pull them again, talk to both those guys and be like, look, we're trying to develop you guys. You're going to get used this season. Be ready to play. And they should both stay motivated. And if Kingsley starts to struggle, Andy was talking about it, and he was kind of sometimes these young guys get out there and they just don't have the answers to the test that week. And their coach talks to them, and, he kind of indicated that maybe Kingsley started pressing a little bit. And so they just went with Wanye. He's going to learn from that. He should be a little bit better the next time he steps out on the field. So I say put him out there. You got Wanye back there in an emergency. And if you have a super emergency, you could slide Joe Thuney over to left tackle. If it starts to become a huge problem this season, I know that's not what you want to do. He's one of the best guards in the entire NFL. So, but you have that option available to you. But develop these young guys. You're 2-0, even with them both playing time at tackle against some pretty high quality opponents. So go through the growing pains. You knew you were getting into this when you drafted him, and you didn't bring back Donovan Smith. You didn't sign another veteran tackle. This is what you signed up for. So don't run and cower from it now. Give the kid a chance to develop.
And trust your quarterback. He's one of the best pressure mitigators in the history of the game. He's great at not taking sacks. Even when he holds onto the ball, he's great at not taking sacks. So trust him. He has been through a revolving door at tackle. Yep. This is they've had 2 years ago, they had Wiley and Brown. Last year, they had Taylor and Donovan Smith. And this year, it's Taylor and Suamataia and Wanye Morris. So he's not used to continuity there. But if you look at the pattern, there are some early season struggles. both of the last 2 Super Bowl years. And by the end of the season and into the playoffs, Andy Reid and Andy Heck have this offensive line gelling for the stretch run.
Yeah, you've got a really great offensive coaching staff, particularly on the offensive line. Let them do their thing. And, if I'm Andy, I would just trust them. I'd be like, which of these guys should I have out there, and go with what those guys say because they know what they're doing. But I want to see Kingsley. If you can develop this guy this season and still win, and he becomes your left tackle of the future, it's a massive, massive win for you. And you're re-signing your interior offensive lineman. You paid Creed, so you need this to work out. All right. Before we get out of here, who needs to step up for you, Adam, for the Chiefs to win this game?
I think it's pretty simple. Their pass rush has been anemic. I'm talking about the outside pass rush has been anemic through 2 weeks. Mike Dana has the lowest pressure rate in the league. If you look at how long it's taking George Karlaftis to apply pressure, it's been really slow. I think both these guys are better players than the way they've been performing. I'm not sure if it's the quarterbacks they are facing, the well-coached teams, what have you, but really need them. And I just would like to see something out of FAU. 12 snaps last week. There's still time, but I'm looking at that hourglass and there's every week there's less and less sand, and we're going to reach a point where we're like, okay, I guess this is Ryan Sims. I guess this is, you go down the list of Chiefs defensive line draft busts. And I can't say that I'm not concerned. So I know Charles Omenihu is eventually coming back, but these guys that have those kinds of injuries, look at Turk Wharton. Turk Wharton was not good last year. He's playing way better this year. So there's no guarantee that Charles Omenihu is going to come in and save this unit. So that's what I'm worried about. Who are you concerned about?
For me, the person who needs to step up is Travis Kelce. Patient with him. We talked about it in the show. You've lost Isaiah Pacheco. You don't have Hollywood Brown. Rashee Rice, I think, is going to be consistent all year for you. You're going to get spotty play from Xavier Worthy. He's going to have some big weeks, and he's probably going to have some weeks where he completely disappears. Travis Kelce, this is your game. These guys they're going to be playing a shell coverage. You can roam around underneath. You need to find the holes. You need to help Patrick move the ball. And so this for me needs to be a big Travis Kelce game. I think he needs to go for over 100 yards. If he steps up and does that, the Chiefs win easily, particularly without the threat of the running game, at least heading into it. We'll see how Steele and Perine do. On the defensive side of the ball, I think we're in for a big Leo Chenal game. He's been sensational this year. I think he is, one of the knocks on him when he was coming to the draft was he's not a particularly fast athletic linebacker. And then he went and ran like a 4.5 40. This he's kind of a freak. And he's one of the descriptions I saw of him in his draft profile was he's a cinder block, but he's doing stuff. He's getting good coverage grades this year, which is a rarity for Chiefs linebackers. He's making plays all over the field. I'm really excited about what Leo Chenal could potentially become in this Steve Spagnuolo offense, and I think it's starting to happen. And this game, going up against a player like Bijan Robinson, he can just shut it down. That's his bread and butter, is stopping a guy like that. And if he does it, I think the Chiefs coast in this one.
Big Leo Chenal fan. Not very many guys can do double-decker bus pull-ups. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that clip after the Super Bowl 2 years ago, but he was late for the parade or something, and the double-decker bus was taking off without him. And this dude just runs up to the bus, jumps up, and just skies to grab way up there, and then pulls himself up to the balcony on the top of the bus. Yeah, I think because he was a white guy from Wisconsin, people thought he wasn't athletic. But if you look at his relative athletic score, he's got one of the best scores at linebacker in the history of the combine. So my feeling with him in coverage is they didn't ask a lot of that from him in Wisconsin, and he might have a little bit more of that in his bag than we think. And if he does have that, he's not playing a full complement of snaps yet, but if he can get that last missing element of his game, you're talking about a player that potentially has no holes because he can blitz, he can spy, he can downhill thump the run. You add coverage to that. I'm in complete agreement with you. In fact, I need a Leo jersey, I think.
Yeah, man. You're right about it. These guys come out of college, and I think it's hard to remember sometimes. Like, they're not even close to finished projects. Like, even the guys that are really good in college. He's coming out of Wisconsin. He's playing in a certain system. That, look, Wisconsin has to play a certain way. They don't have the flashy offenses in the Big Ten. They run the football. They play defense. And so, what's being asked of him in that system versus what he's learning coming and working with an NFL team, a totally different kind of defense, is different. And we saw it with Nick Bolton too. Nick Bolton's such a smart player. He isn't a guy that people expected to be as good as he is sometimes for the Chiefs. And that's because he's got brains as well as brawn. And I think you're seeing it with Leo Chenal's. He had the raw athleticism and strength, and now he's starting to put it together, having played a couple years in the NFL and working with a guy like Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid. It's exciting. I hope he's able to stay consistent with it, but I'm fired up about him. All right. I got a quick reader review, and then we're going to get out of here. As I said, and then we're going to do our final score predictions. But guys, want to support the show. We're trying to march our way to 400 reviews on Apple Podcasts. So we need you, if you've never reviewed the show, head on over there, leave us a 5-star review, ask us a question, we'll answer it on the show. This one comes from Mezzanator. This show is Count Chocula, the best. It is Count Chocula season, as you know. Huge Count Chocula fan. I know you don't eat crap like this, Adam, but they've got Count Chocula with marshmallows this year, and I haven't got my box yet, but I've got to get to Meyer and get them. Here's what he says. Appreciate so much the content you all produce. The Verta rants are some of my favorite things in the world. My question is, now that Hollywood Brown is out for an extended period of time, do you think Xavier Worthy can be set up to be an offensive player of the year? I'm guessing he's thinking rookie offensive player of the year. Offensive player of the year would be a huge ask. What do you think, Adam? He had a great first week, dud last week in terms of statistics, but he does have the opportunity to get a lot of snaps with Patrick Mahomes. Do you think he could pull it off, get in the conversation?
Ooh, tough year to go for that award. Not only do you have quarterbacks, right? You have rookie quarterbacks who usually get the award, but then you have Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., who it's only week 2, and these guys are already going nuts. They're already going nuclear. So yeah, that's a tall order. I don't think he's going to quite get there. Can he be one of the most outstanding rookies? Can he be a breakout player? Sure. I think what we need to watch with Xavier Worthy is if he can continue to get stronger and get more comfortable with press coverage and some of the more physical aspects of the game. He's a slight player, but I think because he's so slight and so fast, a lot of these guys that are like him that go to the combine and blow it away, they're basically track stars trying to play football. He's a football player. He has some semblance of a full route tree. So I think he's going to have a very good year, but this offense runs through, I'm going to call Rashee Rice 1A and Travis Kelce 1B. So if you're kind of the third option and probably the fourth option with Isaiah Pacheco back, I'd like to see him get to what? 700 yards, 5 or 6 touchdowns. Would that be a success for you?
Oh, well, yeah, it'd be fantastic success. I think you're right. I just don't see any way Marvin Harrison Jr. does not win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's just such a special player, other than maybe an injury happening to Kyler Murray and them having like no real backup. I don't think he's going to be able to be stopped. But hey, man, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Xavier Worthy, he had a great week 1. So just keep working, kid. You've definitely got all the talent. All right, let's get to our final score predictions so we can get out of here. We always have long episodes, but it's good content. What do you think, Adam? How do you see this one playing out for the Chiefs?
Chiefs 24, Falcons 17. Last week I predicted 31 points. I'm dialing that down a little bit just because the offense didn't look as crisp as I wanted it to. And I really do feel like the Chiefs just kind of want to grind out wins. They don't want to show their entire arsenal this early in the season. I'm not saying they're not trying to win, but Andy Reid definitely wants, he's kind of on a fact-finding mission early in the season where they just want to stay healthy and keep accumulating wins. They don't care if they're pretty. And then the crazy stuff, the crazy part of the playbook, that kind of comes out later in the year. So I just think they're going to go down there and it's going to be probably an ugly game that they pull out at the end. What do you think, Patrick?
I think for my prediction for Arrowhead Addict website, I went a couple of days ago with 24-23. I thought it was going to be close. The injuries, going to be a little bit of a slogfest. And I've just had a change of heart in the last 24 hours. I think the Falcons, I think my opinion is skewed a little bit by the caliber of the teams that the Chiefs have played so far. And I think the Falcons are a solid team, and they are at home in prime time, but I don't think they're on the same level as the Ravens and the Bengals. They lost to a Steelers team that couldn't score. And I think that the Chiefs defense is better than it's shown the last few weeks. That they're going to start to settle into their new roles. And I just think Andy Reid's going to open up the playbook a little bit in this one. I think they had a strategy against the Bengals. I think they thought they could run on them. It was working. It slowed the game down a little bit. I think the Bengals did some things offensively the Chiefs didn't expect. That also slowed the game down a little bit. And then you had the turnovers. I don't think even without Pacheco, the offense will be quite as anemic as it looked, especially in the second half of that Bengals game. I think Travis Kelce gets going. And I think actually this is one of those games where they cover. I got it 27-17 Chiefs. So I'm giving them 3 more points to take some off the board. I think they also remember they did a great job against Kirk Cousins last year before he got injured when they played the Vikings and they took Justin Jefferson away. I think Spags is got a good game plan to deal with Kirk Cousins, and I think they've got the horses to deal with Bijan Robinson.
I mean, when you think about how immobile Kirk Cousins looks, and then you think about guys from the secondary like McDuffie, Connor, Reed blitzing, that is kind of a nightmare scenario for Falcons fans, right?
Yeah. Joe Burrow can move, Lamar, obviously. Kirk Cousins, they might as well just have him in shotgun and nail his feet to the turf because he's not going anywhere.
Cinder block shoes, man.
Yeah. So with Chris Jones and Spags using exotic blitzing and them looking to stop the run, there might be some. I don't think they're going to be worried about. I don't think they're worried about Ray McLeod. I don't think they're worried about Drake London smoking them too bad deep.
Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, those guys are fast, but if they play their I think Spags is gonna be after Kirk Cousins in this one, and stacking the box, trying to stop the run, and pressuring Kirk. And I think it could lead to some Chiefs turnovers and things like that.
Also, Kirk is so good in time usually. I know what happened. I know that was more the Eagles. It's kind of like that Trump meme when he was like, "Turn off the lights. They're too bright. Get them off. I think that's kind of Kirk Cousins traditionally in primetime. He has just an abysmal history of sort of short circuiting when the pressure is the most. So I think Steve Spagnuolo if you have that history, is not the guy you want to see on Sunday Night Football.
Agreed. And I have to tell you, when you started that sentence, I don't know what happened, but your audio, everything repeated, like everything you said. Every time you took a break, it was said twice. So you were like, "Here's what I think," and then it was like, "Here's what I think." It was the strangest thing. Producer Sean heard it well. Not anymore. And about halfway through what you were saying, it stopped, and I was like, "Oh my God, is this just a me thing, an internet thing?" I don't know if the listeners heard it. It was wild, but producer Sean heard it as well.
Damn, I think that is technology telling us to get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Phantom says there was a glitch in the Matrix. Did you guys hear it? Did that happen for you too? I don't even know how that happened. It doesn't make sense. We're streaming live. Maybe there was a glitch in the Matrix. All right, everybody, we got to get out of here. Great show. Yes, Lothy heard it. So yeah, leave it in because we talked about it. Sean, don't cut it out. we're going to get out of here, everybody. We'll be back on Sunday with our regular slate of shows, the pregame show, the halftime show, and the postgame show. Appreciate Iain McMillan for joining us, Adam Best for joining me as well, and of course, producer Sean for making this whole thing work. We'll see you guys on Sunday. Have a great weekend. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.